I think we're live, Kamna.
Yay!
Hey, good morning. I'm
Good
just
morning.
making sure that it is streaming because it is a funny old thing, Facebook these days at the moment, because so many people are using it that they change. I guess they see what works and then they just change it. And we've had a few changes with Zoom over the last 24 hours. So let's just make sure that it is streaming live. It looks like it is. It is. We're there. We're there.
Hey.
It's so lovely to see you. You know, I feel like I kind of know you already. We met very, very briefly, didn't we?
Yes, very briefly, but we kind of jumped straight into everything that mattered to us, didn't we?
We did. We did. Let me take my glass off actually, because I have got my contact lenses in, but I can't always read with those. Yeah, and well, I suppose that what happened was my sister introduced us
Yeah.
because she sort of thought that you'd be such a great, well, an asset really for my lovely community with all your sort of background. And so I was desperate to meet you. And then, of course, we got on a Zoom call. And yeah, before we'd even said hello, basically, we were talking about everything.
Yes, we were.
Everything as if we'd sort of known each other for forever. And we realized that we're both quite candid, and also that we both have a real deep sense of what it is to be a woman and the struggles that we have and the struggles that other women have. And we didn't, you know, because we sort of dived straight in, and then we thought, I remember us both looking at one another and thinking, oh, I think we need to talk about this. Yeah, I didn't really learn very much about you, to be honest. So tell me a bit. I mean, I know that you're my sister told me that, you know, you're a dancer and a belly dance teacher, but you also do yoga. Go on, just swamp me.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak about this subject, because it's something that is very personal to me and personal to a lot of ladies, but isn't often discussed. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you today. So yes, my name's Kamna, and many people refer to me as Kay. That's another story altogether, which I'll go into another time, but my full name is Kamna. And I am a qualified primary school teacher, which not many people know about me. I'm a bit of a geek, and I quite enjoy reading and writing essays, which I know sounds absurd to some people, but I'm very passionate about writing. After dancing, I would say writing is my forte. So studying and writing, I'm a qualified teacher, but I'm also, I've completed several diplomas on the side because they've kind of been my areas of interest and passion. So my first diploma was in hair, beauty, cosmetology and massage, which I did in India, which is also the same time that I first started learning yoga. And then a few years down the line, I came across belly dancing and my world just completely changed. And through that, I started performing and doing gigs, running classes, and eventually I completed my exercise to music certification. So I became a qualified fitness instructor, which just gave me lots of freedom as to where I could teach belly dancing and just really try and get into the community as much as possible. Particularly, I mean, the idea behind it was to fill a gap, because where I used to live in North London at that time, there weren't many dance classes in the kind of Eastern category. So there was lots of jazz, tap, ballet, but there wasn't much belly dance and Bollywood and all these kinds of things. So I kind of aimed to fill that gap. And then I got married and I've had my children. And while I was pregnant with my son, I completed my yoga diploma. So I am a yoga instructor too, which I'm really proud of. And I've done a healing course as well in something called Inner Dance, which is to do with your internal energy and rebalancing yourself. So, and there's probably lots of other things that I've missed out. I'm just one of those people that thinks we can never stop learning. and nothing stays the same in life. So therefore we kind of need to continue rolling with the times, developing ourselves. And I'm a mother of two. So I've got a 3-year-old son and a 1.5-year-old daughter. So it's become more important for me to just try and be that positive role model for them. So I just see that the more I learn about myself and things around me, the more they're hopefully going to pick up on that and also have a passion for learning.
Yes, and yeah, you share my geekiness. I find that I love studying. I just love studying, and I love that feeling where you're reading about something and then it takes you down another rabbit hole. Do you know what I mean? You literally get halfway through a thing and it introduces another subject.
Yes.
And then before you know it, you find yourself going down another rabbit hole, and I can spend many, many happy moons just disappearing down various study rabbit holes. Like you, I just I hope I never lose that passion for learning, but also at geeking out on a subject. You know, I always think of just geeking out in a subject. You find a subject and it's never enough just to tickle the surface. I want to just really sort of delve deep. But I have to say, see, I hadn't, when we talked first time, I hadn't picked up on the fact that you've got 2 children, a girl and a boy.
Yes.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And like me, you've had them quite close together, haven't you?
Yes, there was a 17-month gap between them. So that was very challenging. So I think that is something which contributed to a lot of things with me personally. But I think it was great. I really wanted to give my son a sibling because he was getting quite spoiled. And I kind of wanted to do it sooner rather than later, because for me personally, as a dance fitness yoga instructor, I kind of only wanted to put my body through the process of going through the change as kind of one big block, rather than kind of getting back to being myself and then again going through it and then again coming back. So for me personally, I felt it was better for me to just stay in that kind of early years mum zone, and then when I feel that I was ready, then to kind of slowly start working on myself and bring myself back to some kind of normality, which is not normal, and it's not the same normal, and it's never the same again.
No, it isn't. And I think that what we forget, I mean, I'll tell you about my boys in a minute, but I think what we forget is that all that time that we've been having our babies, and then, bringing up our babies, and we think, oh, yeah, like you, I'll get to such and such a point, I'll put that stage in my life behind me, and then I'll start thinking, right, let's get my body back. And somehow we think that we'll end up where we started, but we've been aging all that time as well.
Yes, and also internally our body, it responds to the stress of becoming a mother, and internally your body changes, which then shows on the outside. It's actually a very complex process, which I do feel is I wouldn't say undermined is the right word, but I don't feel as though it's given as much attention, because we said, didn't we, that it's all about the baby, and the mum just kind of gets sidelined, and there's so much information that mums miss out on, which you kind of then later on realize and understand, and then you try and share it with other people, but then other people are going through their own journeys and they don't really want to hear it.
Yeah, I know obviously, I'll just say, I've got 4 boys, and I had 3 of them close together. So I had Ted, who, well, he's an 87 baby. I can't even do the maths these days, but yeah, he's in his 30s.
He's the same year as my brother, so he must be 33 or so.
I think no more than that. I think, wasn't he? Is he 30?
God, actually,
no, 33. You're right. You are right. I don't know. I know I got married in 86, and I can't remember how long we've been married. I never thought I'd lose count. Ted is 33. And then Alistair came along just 23 months later. And then Lawrence, actually, funny enough, you talked about getting your body back, and I thought, I really want a couple of years baby free. And actually, the day that I sent off, I went through the Littlewoods catalogue, as they had them there, and I sort of visualized myself on holiday in a bikini. I've never worn a bikini in my life, Kamna.
Right.
Well, that's not true. I have, but I'm not a bikini girl.
Okay.
I swim, so I sort of wear swim cushions.
You want to make sure everything's in place.
Well, when you swim, you want a proper cosy, don't you?
And
so,
you've got boys, because you know, like I know with my son, little Ari, he tugs on my clothes all the time, and you know, we've got an all in bikinis. Just it's like no.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a girl thing or a boy thing, but I certainly wasn't. I say when you swim, you want a proper cosy, so it doesn't all sort of fall off when you're doing turns and things. And then my third son came along. He was very much wanted, but not planned for that year. Okay. And there's 21 months difference.
Sorry, that's my dishwasher.
Well, it's good to know you're doing your dishes, Kamna. I'm glad to know you're keeping a tidy house. So he came along, and then actually I thought, I like you. I thought, let's just do the family. I knew that I wanted 4. Let's get the family done, park that, and then I'll get back to Rachel. And then I just didn't get pregnant. And there's a 3-year gap, which I know isn't a huge gap, but for me, that was a bit of a shocker. That's the first time I've ever really experienced the thought that my body might let me down. Because I've never had problems getting pregnant. It was, you know, I was young, and I just fell pregnant very, very quickly. And I had that sudden feeling of, oh, my body is getting older.
It's changing.
Yeah, it may just not work anymore. And then, like you, sort of, once I'd had the children, thought, right, let's get back to some semblance of what I remembered. And then the shock, like you say, that's just not going to happen.
So how old were you when you had your boys then?
Well, do you know, I was 24. I'd got married at 24, and I got pregnant the month after we got married.
Honeymoon baby.
Yeah, not quite, but pretty much. And my husband and I met when we were 16. We met in the scouting movement.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, and so he very much knew me as a 16-year-old, and I was tiny. I mean, I was 4'8" till I was 15, and I'm 5'5" and a little bit now. So you can see that I did my growing, quite a lot of it, after I'd got married. So my husband met this very, very tiny, I mean, genuinely petite 16-year-old. And then we got married when I was 24, and then I got pregnant immediately. And so I had Ted before we took him on our first wedding anniversary night away. And we actually ended up in separate beds because Tim we had single beds that had been pushed together. It was a bit of a sort of cruddy motel, I think, really. You know, looking back on it, we didn't have any money, and we pushed the 2 beds apart because Ted was such a shocker. And this was probably the middle weeks of his colic weeks. You know, he's probably sort of 5-6 weeks, so full on colic, reflux, call it what you like. He was in one bed. This was our first wedding anniversary. I was in the other bed with a screaming baby, trying to keep him settled. So that my husband.
The things we go through with our babies.
I know, really. And, you know, getting to the nuts and bolts of it, Kamna, I know that your interest, and this is where we have such a sort of lovely overlap, and I sort of think of it very, very deeply in terms of my midwifery background as well, that feeling that what we do in our jobs is we sort of walk a journey with women.
Yes.
At a place in their life. And the word midwife comes from a sort of Germanic and Old English word meaning with woman. And a lot of people take that to mean being with woman when she's birthing her baby. And I've never taken it. I've never, ever taken it for that. I've always taken it as, oh, you know, we need to just be where a woman is and be with her to walk that long journey through our lives together. Yeah. And that was the sense that I got when I spoke to you as well. And just tell me, because am I right in thinking that with your dance work and your yoga work, you're interested in sort of where women are emotionally as well as physically and helping them reconnect?
Yeah, so the kind of work that I'm particularly interested in is helping women overcome their own demons, in a way you could say. Not just, you know, because what I found is that once you become a mother, any trauma that you've experienced before that point kind of also comes to the surface, and it's just, you start reflecting on the type of parent you want to be, what your childhood was like, how you can fix that, how you can make it better. We all want to give our children the things that we didn't have. And for me personally, I lost my father when I was 15, so that has played a huge part in terms of me sort of adventuring down this path and this journey. He was very busy growing up, always busy with work. So I was raised more by my mother than my father. And then he eventually died of cancer. He got it twice in his life. So I think, for me, it's the ability for one to look after themselves, even and try and prevent experiencing any kind of serious illness or disease, through your looking after your internal well-being. The second thing is obviously trying to, because then that fear for me is, oh my God, I don't want anything to happen to me, because I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through, you know. So it's kind of learning from that and then trying to give my children an even better experience. And then that process for each person is so individual, hence why I guess there isn't that support network out there. So women need to look within to find the resources and tools within themselves which can help guide them through those journeys and through the process of transforming, because as I said, nothing stays the same. We, you know, from a girl to a young woman to then a mother, you know, and even as a mother, you know, your children are growing, so you have to grow with them, and it's tough, it's demanding, and there's no guidebook as to how you're supposed to do it. So for me personally, I like using movement and well-being and belly dancing and yoga and meditation to try and help women find the light within, essentially. So not believe that they should look a certain way, they should be doing certain things, they should be, you know, just being a certain way, and there's all this pressure on mum. So it's actually, I try and remove those and try and say, no, what you're doing is amazing, and look at yourself and cherish yourself and love yourself. And you can love yourself in small steps. It's not an overnight process, it takes time and it takes effort. But through small, consistent steps and through self-love and forgiving yourself if you regress or you don't want to do anything or you can't or you're tired and just all these things, but using belly dance and yoga and breathing techniques and all the different kind of things that I enjoy teaching about to help you find that light within and develop the coping tools from within. And then I think once you kind of get to a certain stage, then you feel sort of stable enough to believe in yourself and believe that you are more in control of your journey, or you have the tools to cope with the journey better, if that makes sense. So yes, it's just such a complex process. So, you know, there's no you know, magic solution to it. As you know, it's a constant ongoing process, and I do think women just, you know, the struggle is real, as they say.
Can I ask you then, because you know, it is, I feel that getting to know ourselves is a lifelong journey.
100%.
I think the idea that somehow we will have a light bulb moment, and from then on after we'll always feel at home and are happy and knowing ourselves and the job is done is a myth. I feel that, you know, we're on a lifelong journey of getting to know ourselves, getting to know our partner, getting to know how we are, where we sit in the world. And I don't suppose that knowing is ever completed until, I don't think even on our deathbed we will think, oh,
hallelujah, I figured it out, I cracked the code.
The end of self-knowledge and my self-content. You know, I think that possibly, you know, the very nature of our being is that we will be content one day and happy with ourselves, and then the next day ravaging ourselves and thinking, no, why am I like this? Why am I just so incomplete or whatever?
And hormones, sorry to interrupt, but hormones has such a big part to play in that. And again, it's something that we're just not informed about, how much your hormones they're on they've just turned upside down. You know, you've carried a child, that child has their own hormones, plus your own hormones are changing, your feelings are changing, your diet, your everything needs and wants, and then suddenly the baby's out, you've gone through this ordeal of childbirth, hormones are changing again, then it's the recovery, then your emotions impact your hormones. So it's actually, there's just this huge hormonal process, and through the classes that I kind of teach, it's trying to create that balance within the body, and you know, with the breath and with the belly dance movements, just like, okay, you know what, it's okay, just let's create balance in our body, in our minds, in the hormones and everything, and even in our lifestyle, and that's what we really, women, I think, are ultimately trying to achieve, is just some kind of balance.
Well, and a sense of sort of at ease and feeling comfortable, I think. Certainly I know that when I'm working with women in my work, and you know, certainly all my sort of decades in midwifery, I was very aware that women they know what will happen in pregnancy to a certain extent, just to a certain extent. And you know, my job was sort of walk them through it and explain the changes that were happening. And I was talking to someone yesterday and saying that if we woke up in the morning and you know, we knew we were pregnant, but we went from sort of 2 weeks pregnant to 8 months pregnant with all the changes, I mean, your head would explode, wouldn't it? You know, oh my God. But happily, we get lulled into it gently, 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 gently. And then when we have our babies, it's like someone slammed on the brakes. I can remember the feeling of, I felt like I'd been punched in the solar plexus when my babies had been born, because that sudden, you know, you got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and your body adjusts. And, you know, one day you think, oh my God, I can't stretch anymore. And then the next day you feel quite used to it. And then suddenly you feel like you've been just turned.
Is that how it felt for you?
Oh, I remember being quite breathless with that feeling of being emptied. But then, of course, from your hormones point of view, the body is sort of like, you know, the placenta's gone, and all the hormones come from the placenta. So the placenta's gone, your hormone factory's in the bin, and your body is having to sort of do this huge flip. So it's no wonder that we feel all over the shop. But then at the same time, of course, it's bringing in a whole load of new hormones that we've never had to make us make our milk. And that it does all sorts of things. And at the same time, you know, I know that I had seen hundreds of thousands of women in my decades. Even before I embarked on motherhood, because my mum, you know, I know that I told you this, that my mum was a teacher with the NCT. She was one of the first teachers with the NCT. So I have no memories of there not being pregnant women coming in and out of my house. And I was the fourth of five, so I was used to seeing my mum's post-pregnancy aged body. I was very used to that, and seeing, you know, bodies get plump and pregnant and voluptuous, and then they'd come back afterwards with their babies, and there they were all changed. And so I'd seen hundreds and thousands of women going through the process, and I knew that there were changes that happened to our bodies that would never reverse, never reverse. And yet still, for me, I've struggled. I haven't been shocked at the changes that my body has undergone, and trying to sort of accept that my body will never look like it did when I was 16. But then my body at 16 didn't look like it did at 10, and so on and so forth. We're an ever-changing landscape.
Evolving,
But even despite all the work that I'd done with women before, I was still
how
about you, you know, with your changes? Because again, with you being a dancer, your body is on display, it's being assessed, it's being watched, it's being judged and analysed. Isn't Kamna? Doesn't she look beautiful? Doesn't she move beautifully? Look at her hips. I see with my sister being a dancer as well, that it's, and there is an intimacy in the way that you move, particularly with belly dancing, because it's
Yeah.
very much a woman's dance.
Yeah.
There is an intimacy that we get drawn into with
Yeah.
particular types of movement,
Yeah.
and quite a lot of flesh very often seen, even if it is veiled a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then your body has changed. Tell me, how was that for you?
So yeah, I mean, it was I just assumed that because I'd always danced and because I practice yoga regularly, that my pregnancy was going to be absolutely fine, and you know, I was going to snap back as well. And it was just, I had this fake image, if you like, in my head, which is how I just assumed it was going to be. The reality for me, Rachel, was completely different. And I want to share just a little bit of my story just to support other mums that might be listening to this. And it was just the fact that, you know, I always wanted to be a mum from the get-go of my life. I was, you know, just destined to be a mum, and I was going to be a housewife, and I wanted a family, and I wanted kids, and I wanted like 10 kids. And, you know, it was all this kind of motherly energy I've always had in me. So I also assumed that, oh, I'll be fine as a mother, you know, I won't have a problem because I'm naturally maternal. But honestly speaking, the reality was just so different. So I, first of all, while I was pregnant, I was completing my diploma that I mentioned earlier, the yoga, and then we moved as well, which I know is quite common for lots of people, because, you know, you're having a baby, you want to move, but it's very stressful. It's very stressful. And I was still working. And then unfortunately for me, in the 8th month or so, I actually fell and sprained my ankle to the point where I couldn't walk. So I was pretty sofa bound for the last section of my pregnancy. And I don't know if it was that, or if it was just generally I was feeling quite unhappy in myself. Looking back on it, I can say that I had depression during my first pregnancy, which at the time I didn't recognize, but looking back on it, I can see, yeah, I did. And then my son was 10 days late, and then I ended up having an emergency cesarean with him. Now, that was the first, like when you said earlier, you felt like your body let you down or was changing. So for me, when I couldn't deliver my son naturally, that was it was almost like a flip point for me in my head, because I always assumed I was going to give birth naturally, and I always figured my body was so, you know, flexible and mobile that I would be able to do it. So for me not to be able to deliver naturally was something really difficult for me to accept. And and on my birthing plan, I said, yeah, do whatever you got to do, but no cesarean. You know, it was kind of like, no, I'm not going to have one. And then when that's what happened, I was so overjoyed to see my son, but inside, as a woman, I was distraught. I was broken. And that affected my ability to breastfeed. So I tried to breastfeed my son and I couldn't do it. And it was just too painful. It was just too uncomfortable. And I wanted to. And the more I wanted to, the more I couldn't. And also it didn't help that we had lots of people visiting at the time, because, you know, it was the firstborn and everyone was so excited. So I didn't have that time to myself with him, and that privacy, and all of that really affected, you know, those crucial first weeks that I should have had with my son. And as a result, that kind of then began to spiral a little bit, in the sense of like, I couldn't give birth naturally, I can't breastfeed my son, what kind of woman am I?
Yes.
You know, and so that went on. And then I would say and then, you know, it's also the pressure of being this perfect mum. So having a set routine, taking your child to play groups, starting swimming at 3 months, and all these pressures that other mums subconsciously, or society, or the guidelines, or whatever it is, tend to place on you. And so I kind of found myself keeping myself extremely busy with my son. So taking him here, taking him there, just kind of going along with things. But I was still quite adamant that I wanted another child soon, because I just knew I did. I wanted to give my son a sibling, and I knew I wasn't done. So So then I did get pregnant again, and my second pregnancy was much better, much better. So I don't know if it's something to do with the hormones of a boy versus hormones of a girl, because
no, it isn't, and it's very variable from woman to woman. So I have 4 boys, and
your pregnancies were all different.
They were all very, very, very different. With my first one, I was sick every day for 9 months with all my 4 boys, but with my second one, I can remember, I've got pictures of me and I look permanently monged out, to be quite honest with you. I'm sort of like, oh, I was so blissed out with my second one, and with my first one, it was wretched. I remember feeling, I don't ever remember feeling sexy with my first one at all. I don't feel like sexy, but I don't think my husband got anywhere near me.
What about with your second one though? Did it feel different?
My second one, I felt fantastic. I remember feeling really,
same as me.
I felt sexy, really womanly.
That's how I felt.
It was actually bigger second one. My third one was rough again.
Okay.
My fourth one, I was really, really rough. But then, of course, again, you're getting older. And I can tell you from a midwife's point of view, it's nothing to do with gender. It really is
nothing to do with the baby as such. It's just
it's just to do with your hormones in that pregnancy at that stage of life. It's nothing to do with the gender or anything. And the other things that it doesn't affect in terms of your body is that people will say your legs are hairier if you're having a girl or if you're having a boy, and a heartburn, if you get heartburn, it's a girl or a boy. It makes no difference. And people will also tell you about the heartbeat, but the heartbeat is to do with gestation rather than whether it's a girl or a boy.
Sure, I've never heard that one before.
That's a very typical one. If it's a fast heartbeat, it's a girl. If it's a slow heartbeat, but that's to do with gestation, where you are in your pregnancy.
Sure.
And then cravings as well. People will say if you're craving sweet foods, I don't know. I can never remember, because all I can tell you is that I was completely different with my cravings from.
Oh, I was too. Yeah.
Child. I think if you have a boy and a girl, then you put all the differences in your pregnancy, parenting down.
And you generalize it.
Legs. Rather than it's just a different experience of mothering. My boys, of course, all the men we ever meet in our lives are different, aren't they?
That's true.
I think that women are like this and men are.
No, that's very true. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
We're all so different, really. So you were talking about
so yeah, my second pregnancy. Yeah, my second pregnancy.
I was interested particularly in how that impacted on your body when you sort of had the children, and because I know you told me about you wanted to spring back, and
absolutely. And in fact what happened, Rachel, was because I was so well in my second pregnancy, I managed to I was walking every day. I was doing 10,000 steps a day, so I got to my 5th month of pregnancy and I did not look pregnant, whereas with my son, by the 3rd month I looked like I was already at 8 months kind of thing. So in my second pregnancy, I felt good and I felt great, and I was adamant this time to have that natural delivery that I was owed in the first one. But obviously my body probably hadn't fully recovered and it was at risk, and then the doctors were highly against it, so I ended up having to have a second cesarean. And then what happened with the second cesarean is I had adhesions as well. Something they don't tell you about.
Scarring has got all stuck to your inside.
Tangled up. You're basically tangled up from the inside. My uterus had moved up here, and it was just stuck to my bladder in a funny way, and other tissues from the other side. So what should have been a half-an-hour procedure took double the time because they had to untangle me and restitch everything. So that made my recovery double hard as well. So now suddenly I've got a newborn and a 17-month-old, and I can't walk. I'm in so much pain, and I'm thinking, what has happened to me? It was as if I did not belong in my body, or I did not recognize my body. And I guess in a way I became a bit mentally distant from my body. And then it was like I'd look in the mirror, I wouldn't recognize myself, how I looked. I wouldn't, I wasn't familiar with this feeling either. It wasn't something I was ever been exposed to before. So it was just suddenly there was a disharmony, you could say, between mind, body, soul. It was just all out of sync. And to have gone from being the healthiest I'd ever been before having my son to then finding myself in this position, having 2 major surgeries. Now, I'm the type of person that doesn't even take paracetamol. I mean, I'm very non-drug usage type of person. And suddenly, you know, for both pregnancies, I've been pumped with drugs, I've been cut open, and it was just like, oh my God. And then I struggled to breastfeed again. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And these are the real life examples that women don't necessarily become aware of. And you don't really want to tell them this because you don't want to put them off. You want them to be positive and happy.
Well, that's my job.
Yeah.
That's my job, and I do that job. And very often the people who are at the coalface of this are the community midwives. And I spent many, many years as a community midwife. And I'm, you know, I've said to you before, you know, as midwives, we are very used to talking about everything and just getting in there, really, just going in there, saying the unsayable.
Yeah.
We are unshocked. I mean, we are genuinely unshockable because we've
superheroes. That's why, you know,
we've seen it all. We've done quite a lot of it ourselves, but we have to get this stuff talked about very, very quickly. You know, we have a limited time, and I think it takes a certain personality type. But I know that as a community midwife, when I go out to homes after a baby has been born, and I hear a story like yours, what I typically find is that the woman is desperate. She has a desperate need to talk about her shock, about her sense of being, often women have felt quite abandoned, really vulnerable, on a plate, being carved up. And, you know, this drama is going on around them and everyone is fixated on this baby, and she is just left there with somebody's knife to their body. And then you get home and you want to sort of talk about that. And everybody says, oh, yes, but at least the baby's okay. You know, look at it positively. And they also say things like, don't upset yourself. And what they really mean is, I can't deal with your distress. Don't upset me. And it's usually my job to go in and say, you know, how was it? And women will say, oh, you know, it was okay. Or they'll say, well, it wasn't what I expected. And then they will try to pacify me by saying, but the baby's here now, and isn't she lovely? And of course, it's the midwife's job to say, the baby's lovely. And tell me, you know, what a story, you know, this sounds shocking. You must have been frightened. You must have wondered if you were going to die. You know, tell me about it. And usually that's the first time that women have really, really cried about it.
And I'm getting a bit emotional right now talking about this.
So tough. It's so tough because everybody wants to focus on the beautiful, beautiful baby. And then we have felt destroyed sometimes. And nobody says, don't worry, you know, we'll put you back together. The pieces may not quite fit like they used to. It's like being broken down into all your component parts.
Yes.
And then somehow you've got to work out how they go back together, not just emotionally, but the physical
on
side.
Every layer, Rachel, every layer. And that's when I talk to women, I say to them that, you know, it's not just about how you're looking from the outside. It's not just about your physical body. That's just what you see. But what is going on within, that's really what we want to try and nurture and comfort, because only then will it show on the outside, you know. And where that disconnection is, when you look in the mirror and you don't quite like what you see, it's more to do with something on the inside that's not been resolved, or you've not had a chance to talk about it or heal from it.
And do you think that some of that, and I don't think it's all of it, I really don't think it's all of it. It'd be nice to just lay it at the feet of the advertising community, to lay it at the feet of our culture. But I do wonder whether it just is a little more complicated than that. That there's no doubt about it. I think as women, particularly, we are assailed with images of how we should be, and we know that we can never be right, can we? We're either too fat or too skinny.
Yes.
Yes, we're either, we can't be, you know, we're sort of just curvy enough, or then we're fat, or we're just curvy enough, And then we're lollipops.
Yeah.
And we were talking before when we first met about the language that's used around us as well. So we can no longer have hips, we have to have muffin tops. We can no longer have a bit of brown fat here to, you know, to sort of melt down and feed our babies. We have back boobs, and we can no longer have lovely sort of shapely, fleshy arms. We've got bingo wings.
Yeah.
And the language.
Mum tum.
Mum's tum. You know, we can't just have our lovely bellies, and we can't just gaze on it and go, wow. We may not be able to gaze on our bellies and go, oh, you know, that's lovely. But we can at least be supported to look at our bellies and go, okay, so that's how you are now. But we're kind of, I think that society won't allow us to just accept our bodies. We feel that we have to be judging our bodies because everybody else is as well. So I'm not sure that we can lay it all at the feet of the patriarchy. I think as women, we have a lot of stuff that we circulate amongst ourselves. I'm not sure we're very honest. Were your friends very honest? I mean, I know that with my friends, they would talk about their stretch marks, but they never really talked about how they really felt, how it felt to touch, how their body had lost its elasticity. You know, I'm slim when I stand up. My belly looks flat. But if I take my clothes off and I lean over, I think, oh, there's my baby bag. That's where I kept my baby. There's a little bit of stretch flesh that has been stretched 4 times, and it's never going to go back to that.
Of course not. Yeah, of course.
And then we see Kate Middleton stood outside the hospital.
But she has an entourage of support. You know, she's not juggling everything on her own.
But also, she's not taking her clothes off for the camera.
And don't forget, lots of these celebrities wear shapewear as well, like Kim Kardashian and all these other celebrities. You know, they know the tricks to make their body look a certain way, as well as having somebody to cook their food and make their smoothies and look after the kids so that they get their full sleep. And, you know, so it's so unrealistic.
So did you think that your tummy would eventually, as long as you did all the right things, as long as you worked out, you got back to your dance, that your sort of wrinkly, softer, stretched, I always think it looks like, you know, when you've got a balloon and you know, it looks neat and pristine and tight and smooth, and all the fibers in that balloon are smooth and tight. And then you blow up that balloon just once, and when it goes back down again, there's a sort of folds and wrinkles and softness. And if you carry on blowing up that balloon, it looks just like my stomach, really. Well, that's okay. You know, we're here to sort of talk about how our bodies really are, rather than sort of just pretend that, you know, when we undress in the evening, our body is washboard again. Did you think, because I know that for me, most women that I speak to, they think that in time, although they may continue to see those little white creases that we call stretch marks, where it looks like linen that hasn't been ironed properly.
Love your analogies this morning.
But the skin tone and everything else will. Did you think that would happen with your tummy?
Do you know, because I had a cesarean, it was just completely, I just did not recognize my body, I'll be honest, because I didn't snap back at all, because I had all that, you know, I'd been cut. It wasn't like the baby had been pushed out and the muscles were worked. It was more invasive. I
tell you, it's not about the muscles, this is about the skin over the top. I've only ever had vaginal births, and it's the skin. So the body is a little different after a cesarean, in that for you will have had this. So for all women, when they've given birth, the skin on top is, I mean, now I've never seen a woman that isn't like this. I say, even if when they lie down to have their tummies examined after they've given birth, Kamna, their stomach goes flat. If I lie on my back and stay lying on my back, all my wrinkles here disappear. I look fab on my back. But it's when you get up and you lean forward that softness and the wrinkling, or if I stand up, it's just there, wrinkled and soft. And if I touch it, it doesn't spring back. So if I touch my tummy now, you know, it's sort of, if I touch there, the skin goes in, but it doesn't, like this will just ping back, but my skin on my belly doesn't. The elasticity has gone, and that is pregnancy. You know, that's your mode of delivery. But for you, you will have had that little overhang.
Yes, the kangaroo pouch.
Well, yeah. What happens is that they do the cesarean down here, don't they?
Yeah.
And a fold. Yeah. Tell us about that, because not all women will know that this is what happens after cesarean.
Oh yeah, so obviously the area is so sensitive to touch, so you're not thinking about toning it or doing anything for a really long time. So what I found was that I put on more weight from the recovery of my second pregnancy than during my pregnancy, because during my pregnancy I was quite active and healthy, but then going through another cesarean really put me back and made me quite immobile for quite some time. So actually in the kind of 6 to 12 weeks after I had my daughter, I put on more weight then than I did during the pregnancy itself. So yeah, I mean, there is an overhang, the skin does change. Not just in the tummy region, but I found, especially with my son, my first pregnancy, that I just tend to put on the weight everywhere, and everywhere kind of stretched and expanded and just looked very different. And it's one thing that they don't advocate much in this country, which is popular in Asian countries, which I mentioned to you before, is massage and postnatal massage.
Yes, I was really interested in that.
Yeah, so because I learned how to massage, so I've always believed in massage as being something very complementary, whether you're working out or dancing or just for your general emotional well-being. Massage is something that everybody should do. It's not a luxury. You know, the way massage is seen, oh, it's such a luxury, you're going from there. No, for me, it's a necessity. Everybody needs to have their pressure points and trigger points pressed and massaged to get your energy flowing and everything balanced in the body. So I personally began to, because with my son's pregnancy, I didn't self-massage as much. I did a little bit, but I think I was just too traumatized with my body to really touch myself, or really, you know, I just look in the mirror and I'd see and I just feel depressed and unhappy. But after my daughter, I made a real conscious effort to try and massage my stomach, and not just my stomach, but my back, to help the strengthening of my back as much as I could. And I feel as though that has made such a tremendous impact on the way my stomach looks. So it's still not the way it was, but I do feel that that flow, that massaging of the stomach region, the massage, the scar tissue from the cesarean, and really kind of learning how to massage the stomach upwards and things like that, has really made a big difference to the recovery of my body in that section. And obviously the belly dancing has helped me loads as well. And so I incorporate that. I incorporate particular yogic breathing, so more abdominal breathing, and there's different breathing techniques you can do to help to activate your metabolism and fire up your solar plexus and things like that, to get rid of that stomach fat. But regardless of that, regardless of how much I watch what I eat, it's still there. Okay, so it's like, it's a change. It's a change. Your body changes. It unless you're very lucky. Some dancers I know have snapback and they look beautiful. You can't even tell that they've had a child, you know.
I am the midwife that sees these women, Kamna. So because so let me reassure you. Let me reassure you that those women who have, you know, they appear to snap back. And you know, yesterday I was just doing an EDS workshop. So I was talking to all my clients in the EDS community who have this ultra soft, stretchy skin, and the connective tissue, so the bits that will break and give you stretch marks, is just more delicate. And some people have more robust skin. Some people, I'll tell you what I think about. You know, when you get tights when you're young and you're wearing a skirt, and you have to cover up your legs. Why? To make them a different, you know, you have to sort of wear tan tights. When we were working, we had to wear tan tights. They were horrible. They gave me cystitis and thrush because they were so hot and clammy. But you used to get like 15 denier or 20 denier, and I can't remember which way it was, but some of them are really thick and robust. And some of them are so soft, and we'll show sort of every little lump and bump. That's a bit like the skin. So for some women, they are more like sort of those very strong types that is stronger tissue. It will hold any little lumps and bumps under the surface. It will just smooth out like your Spanx. So some people have natural Spanx, and other people will have the sort of naturally very, very soft. And so any lumps and bumps under the surface, so because there's no Spanx, natural Spanx over the top. But I can reassure you that even the women that I've worked with whose bodies spring back, and everybody is saying, oh, you know, how do you do that? How much harder can I work out? How much more do I have to starve myself? How much more do I have to just love my body? That actually they are still feeling that their bodies have changed so much. Yes. And again, when they get up and they are not sort of stood in a certain way, or they roll, they bend over, that skin that has just been stretched to 9 months pregnancy. It's kind of like when people have had weight loss surgery, you know, or they've had this losing weight surgery. You know what I mean? And so they've lost a lot of weight. And the skin is just soft. I noticed on my arms as well, because having had 4 children, I will have put on weight, lots of brown fat, and then it goes down. And I sometimes feel it's just like this sack, my skin that has been stretched, and then it goes.
Well, it's like, you know, in the media, sort of fat shaming and skinny shaming. And I think with mums as well, it's really important not to judge other mums based on how quickly because you don't know what they're actually going through.
No, and, that's right. That's what I'm saying. All women. Yeah. Even women that we look and we are thinking, gosh, why hasn't my body gone like that? Why is she sprung back into shape and I haven't? That woman is still going through her own shocker at realizing that
it's what you said. It's what you said earlier as well, isn't it, Rachel? About just before we started, about the subject of vulvas as well, and the change that happens there. And you know, that's something that you don't see on the outside, but it's very much a part of the physical body and part of your physical identity.
Yes, and it's really interesting actually, because of course I'm a midwife, so I see myself as quite fortunate, because I have just never as an adult had any sort of uncomfortable, worrying feelings about my vulva. And like you say, isn't it interesting, because women are often, perhaps because they're on display, and this is why I'm sort of interested in how it feels for you getting back to dancing and having your body seen change, because our vulva is we're not generally putting it out there, sort of letting the world have a look, you know, but people will see our bellies. And often we often, historically at least, have a warmer, more comfortable, better relationship with our tummies until we have had a baby. And yet as a midwife, I can tell you that even before women have had babies, their relationship with their vulva is often really quite distressed, quite uncomfortable. If you knew the amount of women that I've spoken to after they've had a baby, I've said, have you looked at your perineum yet? Have you checked? Have you seen whether the stitches are healing? Are you happy that it looks gorgeous? And I would say that the majority of women I speak to say they have never, ever looked. They've never looked. And I find that really sad. And of course that does undergo changes, but how would you know what the changes are if you've never looked?
100%. See, I'm the opposite. I'm the type of person that's always been very aware of every inch of my body. And always been very aware of how it looks, how it feels, and I can tell when something's out. So and also from a healing perspective, you know, and more so from a chakra perspective, I mean, your sexuality, your sensuality, your identity, that whole sacral region, it's such a huge part of who we are. And if you're neglecting that or ignoring it or ashamed of it or embarrassed of it or anything like that, that's going to affect every aspect of your internal well-being, from how you feel about yourself, your willpower, your direction in life, how you love yourself, feel how you're able to communicate, express yourself, if you're being true to yourself. So it really is crucial that women are given the tools to look at their bodies, as you say, and understand it and love it for what it is, and be proud of that, you know, and use that as a strength rather than something to be ashamed of or as a weakness.
Yes. And if you can't, I know that sometimes as a midwife, I've been the first person that's ever sat with a woman and said, shall we get a mirror out? Shall we have a look?
Wow.
I will look with you, and I will have to tell a woman exactly what a vulva looks like anyway, but then also what is normal and what is abnormal after she's given birth. And I'll, you know, tell you now, because again, you know, from the community's point of view, this is useful to know. When we're young, we all learn about our hymen, don't we? If for no other reason than we're supposed to keep intact for far longer than most of us do, I think. So we have an intact hymen, and I don't know about you, but I had this idea in my head that it was like cling film, like some sort of see-through, really, really, really thin, light, because it's going to break. Yeah, we're told, you know, when you first have sex, not till you're married, darling, when you first have sex, the hymen is going to break, and so we think that it's really, really, really thin, and yet I have to tell you, it's not. It's more like earlobe. The hymen is really, really quite thick, and there's a hole in it anyway to let the periods out when, you know, when we're young teenagers. And then the hymen that doesn't break when we've been getting sexually active, part of it remains. And if you're looking at the vaginal entrance from front on here, so you've got the clitoris up here and the labia here, and this is what we would call the introitus, then the hymen sort of comes up like this, and it's just inside. And then when you first give birth to your first child, that last bit of hymen breaks. You don't feel it. So any of you that's pregnant, you know, you don't have to worry about this. You don't feel it go. But then when a midwife or a doctor comes to check for stitches, and they have a really, really good look, if they need to stitch, they're not going to stitch that back up again. And they have to sort of look and think, you know, sort of, is that vaginal tissue? Is it sort of perineal tissue? Is it hymen? And if it's hymen, they leave it. And so what happens then is you have little bits of the hymen that haven't been stitched back together again. And so for women who do know what they look like, and I remember a cousin ringing me up and she said, Rachel, I can't tell anyone. She said, there's nobody I can tell. And she was some weeks, probably some months down the line after her first baby. What is it? She said, I don't think they've sewn me up properly. Well, tell me what you can see. And she said, I don't know how else to describe it. She says, I can see little frilly bits. She said, and I know they weren't there before, and they obviously should be sewn up. And I had to say, they're hymen tags. And from now on, when you look with a mirror at your vulva, it may look not quite so tidy, and it is just inside the introitus here, just inside the entrance to the vagina. These little bits of flesh where the baby has broken through the hymen and that hasn't been stitched up again. And that's something that women never get told before they've had a baby.
Never.
They never
heard that before. I've just learned something new myself.
Yeah. And so when I sit with a woman, I say, come on, let's get a mirror out. Let's just have a little look. Women are often quite surprised to see that they're, you know, the shape of their labia, and that sometimes the labia are frillier than they expect to see. Sometimes after birth, if one of the labia has been torn, which sometimes happens, it's not generally happens, but it can happen, those have to be stitched back. And of course, again, after healing, they can sometimes look just a slightly different shape from what they were before. But when I sit down with a woman with a mirror and have to sort of explain to her what she's looking at and what's normal and what's not normal, for many, many women, it's the first time they've ever really explored what their vulva will look like.
You just get that as homework for everybody listening to this podcast.
Yeah, get to know yourself. Yeah, and you don't have to. I don't know about you, Kamna, but I often think that alongside that pressure that we've got to look this way,
Yeah.
or that way, but whichever way we look, it's not quite right. You know, we're either not quite here or we're not quite there. We're always trying to get to nirvana, aren't we, of the sort of body size and shape. But we've got that pressure. But also, I particularly now, and I put myself under this pressure, we're also expected, alongside being told our body's not quite right, we're always being told that we have to love our bodies. And I feel sometimes quite a lot of pressure that I have to love my body. And rather than just, sometimes it's okay to be able to just regard our bodies. Just regard our bodies and honor our body and say, well, you've been through quite a lot.
Serve me well.
You served me well, and you may not look quite like you did a few years ago. Certainly you don't look like you did before you had children, but you're okay enough. I don't love the way you look, but that's okay. That's okay. And it worries me that sometimes women, at the same time as either trying to starve themselves or, you know, work themselves into a frenzy trying to get muscly again and a certain shape, that on top of that, they're supposed to be loving themselves. And that's just another thing they can fail at.
Well, do you know what? It's funny, actually, because growing up, obviously, my mum was there, and I used to kind of see her as mum, and everything my mum wore and everything, the way she moved and did, was mum. And in my mind, I always thought, well, I'm never going to be like that. When I be a mum, I'm still going to be in my skimpy clothes and doing this and doing that. And now I dress exactly like my mum, and I have literally just turned into my mum. And it's kind of that thing that, again, it's this, you know, it's accepting that that's okay. I mean, I am a mum now. I am a mum, and I want to wear comfortable clothes because I'm on the go all the time, and I don't have time to do my makeup or even brush my hair most of the time. Like today, I'm talking to you, my hair's brushed, the mascara's on, but otherwise, normally, it's just get up and go. It really is. And yeah, I do think there is a pressure to be and look a certain way, and subject about starving yourself and things. I mean, it's just because, again, there's so many different types of diets that women are being offered. There's so many 30-day plans, 60-day plans that, you know, you can go on and you can transform your body. But really, I personally have found, from my experience, the most effective way to actually also reduce weight is to rest, not put your body through more exertion and you know, run and squat jumps and this and that. But actually, if women could take more time to rest, actively rest, then that could actually do them much more good.
Yeah. Do you know, I couldn't agree more. I was talking to my husband about this on the walk yesterday, because as some people know, I've been on a bit of a difficult journey over the last 2 years, because I have what's called an end-stage arthritis in my foot, and I'm out of treatment options. And so I was given a very, very clear choice, which is you get as skinny as you can without being ill, because your ankle can take no more. And I was not overweight, but because of my my EDS, my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I cannot maintain any weight on my ankle joints, or my knees for that matter. They said, you know, you need to get as skinny as you possibly can without getting ill. And I'm thinking, shit, because I don't do diets. I don't do diets at all. I mean, I really, hate all of that. Or there's nothing we can do. And if you cannot manage the pain, the only other treatment option is actually amputation. So you're kind of faced like with, oh, okay, right, what the heck do I do? And like everybody, the first time I'd ever dieted was when I got married. And I'd been sort of happily active, but not in the structured active way that people are now, doing this exercise and that exercise. I used to walk to school. I used to ride to school. I used to cycle up to my boyfriend's house. I used to run around the park with my mates, because there was naff all else to do in Cheltenham when I was growing up. You know, really, it is not a hotbed of entertainment, Cheltenham, when you're growing up. You know, it's pretty, But I'll tell you what, as a teenager, you do not want to live in a pretty place. You want to live in a happening place.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to live in a city, really. And so I had done that typical thing of dieting, so just getting rid of messages, dieting for my wedding. And that then sent me on a lifelong, I realize now, of quite disordered eating. It didn't look disordered to me, but I was constantly being careful. And it's been the most staggering. I was talking to my husband like this last night. I feel quite angry. I feel quite angry that I'd spent all those years trying to monitor my intake to try and maintain a healthy weight, because I knew my joints would get me in the end, but actually at a much, much heavier weight than I am now. And that actually, when I started eating again, I mean, eating like I did when I was a kid, just eating on the go because I was busy, I just started falling off me. Just when I started just being in my body, rather than trying to contain and pressure myself. And I feel that we do that with our bodies as well. We're always trying to compress and change and bully.
And deny our body what it needs. It needs rest. It needs, if you crave something or you want something, eat it. Don't deny your body because you feel that you're working towards a goal of looking like someone or something. Yeah. Any goal should be done for your own personal happiness. But then, you know, we can go deeper and say, well, what is that? Is that really giving you happiness? You know, and we can just tear this apart in so many different directions. It's so important for mums to really tune into their intuition. Yes. and just not put so much pressure on themselves to have to look a certain way. And you know, that's why I love belly dancing, really and truly, Rachel, because it's something that you can do at any age. You can be any size, you can be any ethnicity, you can pick it up and make it vigorous, but you can keep it low and slow. It's just so honoring of a woman's body.
It is. That's a really good term for it. It is. And am I right in thinking, Kamna, and you know, I'm sure my sister's told me this, that sort of Turkish belly dancing has been more sort of sexualized, if you like, but Egyptian belly dancing particularly, which I know is what, you know, my sister doesn't know, is more sort of your tradition is sort of a more Egyptian belly dancing, was very much for women. Yes. For women getting together. Men would not be necessarily in that space, but it is just about women moving their bodies, feeling their bodies, being aware. And again, we don't have to love our bodies. I don't think we do, because that's just another bullying. You've got to love your body. We just have to be in our bodies. We have to be in our bodies. We have to rest our bodies. We have to nourish our bodies. Oh my God, if only I'd not wasted all those years.
Oh, that's great advice though for, you know, young mums like me and other young mums listening, that it's just not worth it.
No, eat, be in your body, because what I discovered, and you know, you've discovered, is that by just resting, eating, then your energy levels come back. And so my energy for just normal exercise, I find that I'm walking faster. And this isn't just because I was losing weight, because I suddenly found my energy levels coming back when I just started to eat normally, just eating. Because I think as humans, we're quite self-regulating, and we grow up fueling to get busy. And then somehow at some point in adulthood, we're taught to exercise so that we can eat. It gets all, rather than we should just be eating, we can get on with our lives.
We need to eat. Eating is not a luxury. We need to eat. It's fuel for our body. So just eat. And I agree with you completely, Rachel.
I'm aware of the fact that, you know, we've talked a little bit about our bellies and how our bellies afterwards are soft. And I can tell you that, you know, I'm older now. You know, I have grandchildren. I have a 33-year, you tell me he's 33. I believe you. I have a 33-year-old son, and my youngest is 26 or something. I don't know. He'll tell me. I've got grown-up children, and I've got 2 grandchildren. My body is aging, and really have had to give up the notion that I will ever get it back to where it is.
How does that feel?
I am at peace. with my body. I am at peace with my body. I am happy that my husband thinks I'm hot to trot.
Yes, you are.
He thinks I'm a hot to trot. I look in the mirror and I have to just think, okay. And I would say that for a woman as well, that, you know, if we can just stop thinking that we
really are our own worst enemy, aren't we?
Yeah, we have to bully ourselves. Actually, it feels okay to look in the mirror and go, all right. I try now when I undress. I will always look in the mirror. I'm not one of those that won't look in the mirror. And I'm very good, like you say, I massage oil. I'm very, very dry naturally. Massaging is lovely. And you say about it helping the skin tone. And it does help the skin tone. But you know what I think, Kamna, is when I slow down and I oil my body every morning and every evening, not because of stretch marks or anything, you know, I know that my stretch marks won't go, and I'm all right actually about my stretch marks, but just because I'm dry and itchy and I get eczema, very prosaic. But when I massage my body, that is my way of just saying, okay, of touching our bodies.
Yes, it's so important.
Everything feels a bit different. It feels a bit softer. And so now where I am at my grand old age, of where I am in my years of being able to look in the mirror and just, some days I go, oh girl, you're okay. Look at you. Yeah, I can see what your husband sees in you. And most of the time I have to accept the fact that it's all right to look in the mirror and go, okay, I can live with that. Or, well, some days, because we just move, don't we? Sometimes think, oh, she looks okay. And other days I think, oh, I just can't say that I love that body every day. Sometimes I'm all right. Some days I have to be content with the fact that I may not think that's beautiful, that's lovely, but it is still my body. It is still mine.
Do you, excuse me, do you think your mood or your feelings towards your body changes based on what you've eaten that day, or whether you've been active or not?
I'll tell you what it does. It changes with my hormones. I'm on HRT because of my EDS. I know that I will probably be on quite hefty HRT until I die. My mother was on HRT until she died at 79. And that's probably what I will be on as well, because my joints are probably not going to cope if I'm not. And I want to be active until I drop. So I'm on quite an unusual type of HRT for my age, which means that sometimes I'm taking quite heavy doses of progesterone. And progesterone is just not, it makes you feel premenstrual. So what I find, Kamna, and I'd be interested to know if it's the same for you, is that my feelings and the way I speak about my body varies through the month. And sometimes I still look at myself, and within my head, even if I'm not looking at my body, within my head, I'm thinking, oh, I'm energetic and I'm full of life and I'm okay and I'm good in the world. And then tip my hormonal balance and I feel, I just feel uncomfortable. I feel like I don't belong in my body. I look at my body and think, I don't recognize. How that happen?
Yeah. No. Yes, I do. Absolutely. And your sister Charlotte has been on the receiving end of it, because only because I go through waves myself where I'll feel really energetic and positive and bursting with ideas and a zest for life, you could say, and feeling good in myself. And then suddenly, you know, in preparation for my period or what have you, it's as if I'm a different person sometimes. You know, it's as if suddenly I just feel as though all of this hard work is just like a waste of time and I'm not getting anywhere. And, you know, just look, I'm doing all of this and I'm still not seeing any results, and this and I'm that. And it's like, I completely empathize with that. And like we say, it's hormones.
Yes, and it is the world of woman, and we don't have to like that. You know, nobody likes being premenstrual. I used to really like the other side. I used to love the ovulation period. You know, when you're really energetic and feeling sort of very very happy and sexy in your body and a bit rampant, you know, you're going to go out there and get pregnant. I used to love that. And you lose that, of course, as you go menopausal, even if you are on HRT. And I know that a lot of women think, oh, I know, it'd be fantastic to sort of get into the menopause. But of course, because we are so reliant on our hormones, even though we may struggle with those rises and falls, when your hormones really start to change with the menopause, in fact, the most common side effect, if you like, of the menopause is not the hot flushes. That's what all the doctors talk about. But actually, the one that women talk about is the sudden increase in anxiety and the sudden loss of confidence, crashing confidence. And I think that's where I had to start to realize, oh, there's never going to be a point in my life when I'm static and I can be happy with where I am. And actually, I think that the menopause has probably been the most empowering part of my life, apart from, and before we finish, I want to know about those early months of our sort of mothering, when we were sort of snuggling with our children and feeding our children, whether they're with our boobs or with a bottle, and what that does to our bodies as well, because of course that's a massively hormonal time. But I do know that the menopause has been it's been quite a revelation. I know an awful lot of menopausal women who suddenly feel very empowered because they no longer give a monkeys. It's like, I'm never going to be an opera star. I'm never going to be a part of the English National Ballet. But I'm never going to be this. I am nearing the end, the later years of my life. Realistically, I am over halfway through my life, I would assume. And there's something that happens when you wake up on your 50th birthday, and I'm past my 50th birthday. You wake up on your 50th birthday, and most women have the same experience when we talk about it, which is you sort of say, come on then, don't you dare, because I tell you what, I'm 50 now, don't you even. And there's something massively empowering about that sudden feeling of, don't you dare mess with me, because I've had 4 kids. I've seen it all. I've been there. I've done it. This body has seen it all. Don't mess with me. And there's something there is something very good about the menopausal state, that in one way we feel this crashing confidence around our place in the world. And at the same time, paradoxically, while our confidence is crashing, we're also going, don't mess with me. I'm menopausal, you know?
I mean, I can't comment on that, of course, because I'm not there yet. But I can say that it was a similar experience for me with becoming a mother, because whilst on one hand, my self-esteem and body confidence was crashing, and although in some ways I was very weak, you could say mentally, because I was not loving myself the way I should have, but my possessiveness and love and protection that I had for my little cubs was just like zoom, and kind of like, you know what, I put myself aside for that reason too, in the sense that my kids need me, like regardless of how I'm feeling about myself, this isn't about me anymore. And whereas before I might have been maybe shy or, you know, been very gentle about expressing myself, but actually as a mother, I feel much stronger and more confident in myself. And I think also that's why my work path is kind of steering down this road, because I feel as though this is something that I know and I've lived it and I'm living it. And so, you know, if through what I'm doing, I can help raise that awareness with other mums that, okay, you might drop in one way, but you're going to pick up in another way. And then everyone tells me once your kids go to school, you'll get that balance back and it will weigh itself out and all the rest of it. I'm not too convinced, but that's what I keep getting told, that a time will come when the kids are sleeping and you do get an hour or 2 for yourself. And then, you know, things will start to change again. So
certainly I know that my 40s, you know, when the kids were through school, really, because I did have my children.
You had 4, so obviously you had to wait quite a long time until.
Yeah, I did, but because I'm what's termed an extreme night owl. Once my youngest one was born and weaning, and starting to, you know, at least if nothing else, I could sort of get into bed and then party. I used to work in the daytime. So once I went back to work when he went off to school, but I was working from home before that, and I was teaching in the evening, doing sort of infant feeding, birth prep and everything. And so I used to feed him actually while I was teaching. And then he would go to bed. And then friends used to pick me up genuinely about once or twice a week. Friends used to pick me up when I'd finished work at about 10:30. This was through my 40s, through my late 30s and 40s. And then we used to go clubbing.
Wow, that's where I'm going wrong.
Yeah, but I'm an extreme night owl. And so I would then rock up at about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, how would you cope then with the demands of...
To be perfectly honest with you, it didn't really much matter, because even if I hadn't been going out and using that time of night, I don't sleep in those early hours anyway. So it made no difference to me. And that's, you know, been a long time for my husband to understand, is that it makes no difference. I can go to bed at midnight, or I can go to bed when I'm ready for bed at 4. It's not going to make any difference. I can go to bed at midnight and he thinks I'm sleeping. I'm not. I'm just lying awake thinking, well, this is boring.
Oh, wow.
I'd rather be partying. So it made no difference to me, but at least I felt that I am a party girl. I don't sing at the moment, but I sing in a soul band, and I love nothing more than gigging. And then when you get a lock-in after, you know, if you've been gigging in a pub or whatever, and then there's a lock-in, and just hanging loose. The problem is that everyone around me is the same sort of age as me, and they're all sort of turning into pumpkins and wanting to sort of go home for their cocoa, and I'm like, come on, come on. But I can say that for me, my late 30s and 40s, when the children were older, I did really embrace, and I did get out there, and I did feel some of, not my old self, because you never get back to your old self. You're a changed person. You're a mum. Like, yeah, you're going out now in a completely different mindset, completely different body, a completely different place in the world. But I did start going out again. Oh my God.
Really good, Rachel. That's quite inspirational, because I used to be a party animal too, and those days are long gone. I mean, I'm just the complete opposite now, and sometimes I can't believe who I once was and who I am now, and it's like two separate people. And that's been a big journey for me, having to embrace this new me. And I do wonder as well though, because I used to have a friend, there was a girl I used to teach at the gym, and she was always like, well, she had 3 kids, I think, and she'd had them in her 20s, and I still hadn't even met my husband at this point. And she was like, oh, you know, I've had my kids and now I'm in my 30s, life's all about me, I can enjoy myself. Whereas I didn't have my first until about 32, I think. So I wonder as well if that makes a difference, having had a career and having this whole independent life, for, you know, because now it's becoming more and more common for women to have their first babies in their 30s, mid-30s, even 40s for that matter. And I wonder whether that in a way contributes to, I don't know if it's easier or more difficult transition, because you're used to your sleep, you're used to cooking just for yourself and living for yourself and your career and your goals and your dreams, and suddenly you've just got to switch that completely. And it's,
I'm not sure. I know that a lot of my work is with corporate women who are making that transition from the corporate life into motherhood. And I think that there are some unique pressures, worries that come into that, because like you say, they're much further down into their career. They've got a much more solidified idea of how their day is going, who they are as an adult in their adult place in the world. I was quite new into my career. I mean, I'd done a few years, you know, because of course, when I was training, you were working and training. And I'd worked whilst I was still at school as well. I worked in an old people's home as a sort of Saturday job and things. So I sort of worked, and then I got my career going. But like you, I was very, very sure that I wanted to be a mum. Just like you, I was always wanting to be a mum. And then when I had my child, it was like, oh, I thought I was going to be great at this, and I am rubbish. And I had looked at, you know, I'd helped other women with their babies as well. I thought that I'm going to be such a great mum. I love babies. I love babies. This is all I've ever wanted. And then my baby came along, and I just thought, I am so poor at this. I am awful. I'm ruining my child, because of course, you know, he was a normal baby. He was a normal baby. colicky and kept me up all night. And I just thought I was given, for want of a better word, a beautiful, perfect baby, and I've broken him. Why doesn't he work? And why am I not the loving, ever patient mother that I thought I'd be? I thought I would be.
Did you feel like you were letting him down?
I felt that I had done something to make my baby this wakeful, crying baby.
Oh, I had that with my son too, because he was like that. And I thought, oh, it's because I was feeling depressed in my pregnancy. It's my fault.
Yes, that's right. And most mums, and of course, that's all my work in my community now, of course, and has always been my professional work, really, is in how do babies look? How do they tick? How do they work? And of course, babies are never wrong. Babies are perfect at being babies. But we as women are made to think that we should make our babies this way. And then when we discover that actually they're like this, we just feel that we have broken them. And it's our job to come up with the key to what will mend them, when in actual fact, they're just on the same journey as we've just been on, called life.
And yes,
chaotic, ridiculous life journey, you know?
And you think like mums are juggling who they were, the experience of childbirth, recovering from childbirth, their self-esteem and identity, plus trying to have a healthy diet if they can, plus trying to do the laundry and the household chores, plus trying to keep up relations with family and friends, plus trying to look sexy or fit in a workout in all of that. The pressure is just immense. And really, none of that matters. All that matters is your little baby and you and them. That's it. But not in the way I think we are made to focus on the baby. Like I think a lot of mothers, it's like, especially today, you know, it's Google says this, I should be doing it like this, I should be doing that.
Google garbage. Just Google garbage is just awful.
And it's inevitable that, you know, the frustration has to come out somewhere. You know, a bottle can only fill up so much before the lid pops up. So generally, I think the first port of attack tends to be how we're looking and our self-image.
Yes. Can I, before we end, I know that I say, you know, what I'm kind of interested to know about what it did for you in sense of your body. You know, we're here talking about our bodies and your self-image and everything. With sort of that initial, that young mothering, because I know for me, I'd had all these sort of usual body image problems that I think young girls have. You know, we're judged, we look,
which I did too as a teenager.
Teenager, how we look, how we present. And I know that I had a lot of worries about presenting appropriately as a woman. I have never presented consistently very well as a woman. I know that's always been a real tangle for me personally. I'm never quite sure where I've sat with that. You know, I've never been in sort of shoes and nails and I can do it, but a pressure on me to present appropriately as a woman, that has always been a tangle. And for me, when my babies were little and I was feeding my babies, and suddenly my boobs, which I'd always had a terrible relationship with for a whole heap of reasons, I'd had just a really, really unhappy relationship with my boobs. Suddenly, I think I can say it was probably the only time in my life that I felt, oh, I feel like a woman. I feel very womanly. And those moments when I was clutching my baby to my chest, whether there was sort of a boob in there or not, but those moments when I had a child here, a baby here, were for me the times when I thought, oh, I feel very womanly.
Woman.
Not girly or even particularly feminine, but for me, that was a real expression of my womanhood. And actually, even though our boobs change, don't they? And actually, people always think their boobs change when they have breastfed, but actually pregnancy changes our boobs. And also age
Yeah.
changes our boobs. Even if you've never had babies, age changes our boobs. They go softer, they hang differently, the nipples change texture, everything sort of just changes about our boobs, whether we've had babies or not, whether we've breastfed our babies or not. But actually for me, that has been helpful with my relationship with my boobs going forward as well. For me, that memory, that knowledge of my time with my babies here still helps me reconnect with my sense of womanhood. How about for you?
For me, I think, for me personally, I feel more connected with my belly dancing, I'll be honest. Maybe because I'm still at a very early stage of my motherhood journey. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I do feel womanly when my children, but I felt very womanly beforehand anyway. So for me, I felt the opposite. I felt frumpy and unshapely, and like before I had curves, whereas now I just felt straight and full and not in control of my shape. So for me, going back to the belly dancing has helped me to honor my new woman's body. It's not what it was with a kind of nipped in waist, as you say, but my boobs have got bigger, but I was always, I wouldn't say flat chested, but I wasn't massively endowed on top. So now I feel like, oh, okay, there's more there. This is good, and okay, my hips are wider, but that's good because belly dancing is about the hips. So it's just my stomach, but just because my stomach's bigger, it doesn't mean I can't do belly rolls and belly movements. And it doesn't mean when I'm doing my yoga exercises, I can't use my belly for its purpose. So I feel as though through my belly dance and my yoga, I'm able to really tap into my internal energy, which is making me feel more womanly. And also, I think also understanding the influence of, like your male side and your female side has also helped me to feel more womanly, because I'm naturally tend to be, although I am girly in some ways, I'm very much like my father. I'm quite, full on feisty, strong-minded, this, that. But yeah, I guess being a mother helped me bring out the more maternal qualities in me that I didn't know I had, such as patience. I was patient anyway, but real patience and a softness and a care. Exactly. And also I found that helping, because my hormones are very up and down, I found monitoring myself in accordance with the moon cycle has also helped me really tune into my femininity and the divinity within me, you could say. So I've found that those things have helped me more, and as a result they've made me feel like a better, in a way, like a better woman, a better mom, and like just very much more in my body, as opposed to trying to fight my body, and embracing, okay, I feel emotional today, okay, I feel strong today, okay, I'm feeling very relaxed today, and just actually taking all of that in my stride, to me, is what defines being a woman. The fact that women can juggle so much all the time, on so many different levels, to me, it's like the more I embrace that and honor myself for it, the more womanly and superheroic I feel in myself.
It's really interesting because, yeah, your journey has, and I guess what we're saying here is what we've come full circle, haven't we, really, in that our life on this planet, it is a journey. And for me, that actually helps. It helps to think, I'm not here. I am walking through. I am journeying. I am always moving. I'm never stuck. I think so often a lot of anxiety comes about thinking that we're stuck in a state.
Yes.
Here, rather than that notion of I am journeying. I am not stuck.
100%.
Moving, and I will never stop moving. For me, my soul as a midwife, even though I've hung up my midwifery hat, that midwife in me, which means I am with woman. I love the thought that through my experience of my changing body, of, like, you say that you went from being sort of quite womanly to feeling a little bit more shapeless and android maybe, and I had the opposite experience of going from this petite, very underdeveloped child. I say I was 4'8", I was tiny. And I did all my growing through my early years of mothering. And then I suddenly got curvy and thought, oh, wow, where did they come from? Oh my God. But we're always changing, and our journeys as women, I think, for me, the most beautiful thing, and the thing that keeps me grounded and centered and feeling I'm okay on this spinning globe, where sometimes you want to hang on. Think, oh my God, don't spin. Do you ever feel like that? You want to hang on because the globe is spinning as we're trying to journey onward. Is that I sometimes feel like I've got links here. And this isn't just my sisters across the globe, you know, you and me and every other woman, but my mum, my aunties, my sister, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother.
Your ancestral links.
Yeah, and sometimes I like to imagine myself as this string of pearls, and we're all just connected. And this experience of us in our female bodies, ever changing, the ravages of sort of hormones, of babies, of giving birth, of our bellies growing, shrinking, our weird lumps and bumps and scars and overhangs, our droopy boobs. At the end of the day, we're linked. This is us. This is us, guys. We're coming through the world. We're coming at you. And that for me is what gets me through my day, really, is knowing that I'm linked with every other female soul that has ever been this experience.
It's miraculous, isn't it? I mean, when you actually sit and think about it, it's beyond words, really. And this is what I don't think women give ourselves credit enough for, because it's just this expectation, like, yeah, you're a woman, you're going to have a baby, get on with it, move on. But no, there's an entire process that has gone on for generations and generations. And maybe it's different now because we're surrounded by social media and everything's so much more accessible and available to us and in our faces almost, that we begin to doubt who we really are and why we're here and what we should be doing. So that's why I believe the answers really are within, that, you know, we can be happy, we can have it all, you know, and we can just feel content with what we have without always feeling as though we're not doing enough. But that starts from the mum loving herself. That's so important.
Yes, and I would just put out there that for me, that means that I don't have to put myself under pressure to love the way I look, or even the way I am, because sometimes I can be a right cow, that I don't have to love myself in those precise ways, but I do accept myself.
As a whole.
As the whole muddly, chaotic, scarred, lumpy, bumpy, weird shaped, muddly, hormonal woman that I am me. And that part of our long journey together, linking arms, is just about thinking I'm here,
and you're doing it,
and we're doing it, girl, we're doing it, we're making
100%. Because just for any mums that are listening that have been in the depth of darkness, as I call it, like I have been there too, honestly. And it felt as if it wasn't that long ago that I was there. And I'll be honest, for me, touch wood, this lockdown has provided a good time for me to spend at home with my family without the commitments of having to go anywhere or see anyone or do anything. So for me personally, this period has been like a blossoming period for me personally, because I haven't had those pressures, you know, of you have to go to playgroup, you have to do this, then you go to surf play, and then you have to visit this person. There's been none of that. And it's been such good quality time just for my kids and for me. And I have found that it's as simple as that, but it's had such a profound impact on me. And honestly, it was only last year that I was feeling so low. So I just want to reassure the ladies that are listening that it doesn't stay the same forever.
We are journeying.
Things are constantly changing. Yes, and no matter what you're going through, there will be other mums who are going through a very similar story, and there will be mums like me who want to support you and help you, because I've been there myself and I know what a lonely journey it can be. when you are in that space. But you must remember that, you know, the ladies who are listening must remember that you are special, you are unique, and you are beautiful just the way you are. And there's no need to place any pressure on yourself mentally or physically, because you are made the way you are, because you are perfect as you are, and you don't need to change that. And as soon as you see that and you love yourself and you embrace yourself and you accept yourself, that's when the real change can begin to happen in our lives moving forward. 100%.
Hallelujah. And before I close, what I know that I already have all your contact details so that women can, because not only do you teach belly dancing, but you do yoga, but you do yoga to help women just reconnect. It's just that reconnecting. It's just that ability to not be scared anymore of being in this body, to not feel so disconnected with our changed postnatal body, to start to sort of look to our bodies again. You do that through yoga, don't you, as well as your dance?
Yes,
and it's, give me the details for that. Yes,
I shall. And it's this idea, it's what I've had to do. I've had to almost rebuild a new body for myself, or re-accept my new body. And yes, through the yoga, because, you know, it sounds very cliche, but it is about mind, body, soul. You know, they all are very much interconnected. So it is important to give yourself the balance of each. It's not just relaxing all the time, but it's not overexerting all the time either. It is very much about the balance. And as you say, listening to yourself and connecting to yourself, because only you can connect with yourself. No one can give you the answers, and we all have the answers within us, but it's just finding the time. And also what I found is that I was trying to find the time to help myself, but it was very difficult not knowing where to start. So when I'm teaching, I'm giving you, you know, a starting place really, because I've been there, and I can help you become aware of your energy channels and how the mind, body, soul connects together, and how you can draw your attention inwards, and all those different techniques that you know, they help, they make a big difference.
And I know that you've said that in the next week or two you're going to come, and maybe in our happy hour we'll have a nice bit of yoga for mums, either in, you know, we'll find a time, might be in that our happy hour on a Saturday or some other time, but then you're also going to come back in and give us a little kiddie hafla, aren't you?
Yeah, we talked about doing a kiddie hafla.
Well, really, that will really get us in touch with our bodies. With a hafla is a belly dance party, isn't it? Really, wouldn't you? That's what I would say. It's a belly dance party.
Yeah.
We'll get that in the middle of the day when the little ones are up, and our toddlers and maybe our preschoolers, or maybe we'll do it when the kids get home from school. You know, some of the kids are already back. Year 6, I think, are back, aren't they? So maybe we'll start have a little think, and we'll do a hafla, and then we'll have a yoga session. That'd be fantastic. It's been so lovely having this chat.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it really has been.
Yeah,
I feel like we could just carry on talking for hours and hours about this.
We've covered a lot of ground, you know, and a lot of body. We've covered quite a lot of body, and I would just like to sort of finish up by just reminding all the women out there that, you know, we do all look different, we do all feel differently, but we do share this commonality called being a woman in this hormonal space that we're all in, and that we do all feel these same fears, anxieties. Part of that is society, part of that is just ourselves and our hormonal,
our experiences, our past experiences too.
Absolutely. But that, you know, for me, my parting message would be, you know, we are linked, we are arm in arm, and we are journeying, we are always moving forwards, but we are linked. You know, this is us all the way across, not just across our world, our universe, but also we are like this with all the women that have ever gone before us, all the women across the globe. This is us, this is our commonality, this is what we know to be true. It's that this is us, this is our bodies, this is our bodies. Yeah, look at us, we're all right. And that's what, you know, I would want to sort of leave for us all, really, is that we're okay. This is
and women supporting other women, not bringing them down or shaming them or anything like that, but really being just sensitive, because we are the women, you know, and we must support other women and praise other women and bring them up. It's so important.
And I think with that saying, we are the women. Yeah, go on, put your elbows out. So we are
the women.
We are linked up, ladies. Well, you know, I hope that all the listeners and the viewers will have had time to sort of just think and reflect on their own experience, their own journey with their body through this amazing world that we exist on and are journeying through. That I hope that some of you have maybe sort of thought, reflected, wondered, maybe you share our experience, maybe your experience is very, very different. And yeah, it's been fascinating and given me a lot to sort of reflect on today.
Me too.
Thank you so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the stream, so I will just take it off the link, the live link. What am I trying to say here? So I'll stop the live link when we've said goodbye, and then you can stay there, Kamna, so that I can say goodbye and thank you. And so, yeah, bye everybody.
Thank you for listening.
Our podcast. Bye for now.